Hi all. In this video I'm going to talk about one of the new features which is released for the Spring 21 that for the flows, and that is about multi-column screens in the flows. So let's say I have a requirement stating that there is a sales manager and he has a sales team, and he want all the sales team members to enter some of the fields whenever they are creating a new contact record from the account level. And also we have one more requirement, like whenever the sales users are creating the new contact, they should enter the phone number and the birth date on the screen. And the sales manager also have one more requirement, where the birth date should not be in future. It means the users cannot enter the birth date as tomorrow. So I'm going to show you how the current button is showing up. So this is the current button, and this is how we are seeing it when we click on the new contact button. And this is the screen that the sales users were expecting, where they can enter the birth date, even the phone numbers, and if you want to enter any other details, they can enter it here. So this is all the requirement. Now I'll go back to my Salesforce. So this is my Salesforce, and I'm just going to show you how the current button is working. So I'm clicking on the button. So this is showing up some fields, and these are the fields that we have. So once I close this, so I'm going to the setup to create a new flow as per our requirement. And from the quick find, we'll just type the flows. It's taking a little time. Okay, so here we'll create a new flow. So as I already explained, we need to have a screen visibility for the sales user. So I'm going to select the screen flow and say next. And you can create the flow in two different ways. This is only for the UI level that you can create the flow. So I'm going to select the auto layout. And here currently we do not have any options selected. So I'm going to click on the plus icon. So this one will give me what type of elements that I can add on the flow. So as per our requirement, we need to create a new contact screen on the account level. So as a first step, I'm going to get the account record ID. So if you look here, we have some data options. So I'm going to select the get records from here, and I'll label it as get account. So you can select the object as account. And here I'm going to pick up the account where I'm adding the flow. The reason I'm getting the record, the account ID, is I want to auto populate the account lookup on the new flow screen. So here I'm going to say the record ID equals, and here I will create a new resource and just variable type, and I'll give the API name as record ID. This is how Salesforce understand, like if you give the API name as record ID, so it will just store up the ID of the record. And the data type, I'm going to select it as text, and we can verify through the debug if we select the available for input. So once this is done, so the first step is completed. I'm just going to save this one. So as a first step, we created a data variable which gives me the account record ID. Now as a second step, I'm going to create a new screen here, and in the screen I'm going to take the latest functionality. So that is called section. So I'm going to pick up the section. So this is one of the sections that we're going to set up the multi-columns. So when we just click on the add column here, so this section will divide into n number of sections. Like let's say if I click one more time, so the section will divide into 3 times. And if I want to delete one of them, I can just click on the delete button. So it will show me only two columns in a single section. So I'll go back to our screens, and here we're expecting to see 4 sections, and each section should have 2 columns. So we already have 1 section here, so I'm going to add 3 more sections. We have 4 sections here. So I'm going to divide the remaining 3 sections as 2 columns. So this is all set. I'll just label it as multi-column screen. And also I'm not going to use the standard footer and as well as the header here. So I have all the sections, and in each section I have to add the variables. So let's say I first need to go for the first name, so I'm going to select the text here and same text for the last name, and I'll have a lookup. So lookup is for the account, and there is a title field, so I'm going to select the input type as text for that, and I want the user to enter mobile phone and the home phone. So I'm going to select phone field in this particular section, and I'll select the email for one of them, and the other one is the date field. So now we added all the field types, different field types that are required for our screen, and here we'll label each one of them. So the first one is the first name, and if you want to mark it as required, we just need to select the required option. So I'm not going to mark the first name as required. So last names, as we know that the last name is required to create a contact the regular Salesforce flow. So I'm going to mark this one as required, and I'm going to select the account lookup from here. So I'm just going to label it as API name as input account name, and our field API name is the account ID. So this is the ID field from the contact object, because I want to set up the contact object account ID with the account that we are processing the record, and I'll just label it as account name, and our object is contact. And for the record ID, we have already created a record ID in the get records node. So I'm just going to pick up the record ID for this one. So the account lookup value will come as default for this one. And the next one, I'm just going to label it as title. And we have 2 phone fields. So let's label it as one of them as mobile. And we can pass any pattern that we want to select it. And the other one is I'll just mark it as phone. So we have 2 phone fields here, and email. The last one is the birth date. Okay. So if I go back to the slides again, so the sales manager want the users with some validations. So one of them is the birth date should not be in future. So for that one, we'll go back to the birth date field, and if we go to an option called valid input, so here we can create a formula logic here. So we'll just select the field first. So our field is a birth date. Let me check for that. So I'll mark it as required. and I'll give a message here like birth date should not be in future. And here we can select the date field. Let me just pick up one of them here. So we'll first save this one with some field. We'll come back to this. Let me try to save this. Okay, let me go back. We'll look for the date field again. So valid input. So we have the date field here. So for the date field, and if the user enter the validation, I'm going to give it as the date field should be less than today. So we have added the validation here, and we'll mark the phone numbers as also required. So if you go to the phone field, there is an option called required. So we'll just mark it as true, and we'll save the screen flow. So until here we have created the screen flow, and we did the initial setup. Now we'll add the next node, which helps us to create the records. So here I'll label it as create contact, and our object is going to be the contact. And here we need to select to store the values in different resources, because we have different input elements on the screen. So we need to go for the second option, that is use separate resources and literal values. So here I'm going to select the object name. So my object is contact, and we'll start at the fields one by one. So our first field is the account ID. So we'll set up the account ID as the record ID, and we'll add the next fields, that is the birth date, and our screen component is birth date. We'll go with the email. So here we'll pick up the email value, and same with the first name. We'll take the first name field and the last name. We have the phone fields also. We'll take the phone field and we'll map it with the phone, and we also have the mobile field, and we'll look for the mobile. Okay, now we mapped all the 8 fields, I guess. Three. We have one more field, so that is the title. So selected the title field. I'm mapping this one with the title. Okay, now we mapped all the fields. I'm just going to save this one. And so till here we got the account ID, and we created the screen, and finally we created the contact record. Now I'm just going back to the screen element again. So here we do not have any save button. So I added an arrow component, because the regular footer will show me uh, the finish or previous buttons, but I want to see it as a save label. So that is the reason I created a arrow component. So, and I'm using that arrow component for the screen flow. So I'm just going to take out the show footer option from here, and I'll add my custom Aura component, and here I'll just label it as a footer, and here I'll label it as save. And this is done. I'll click on the done button. So now we'll save the flow. So label it as multi-screen for contact and save. So our flow is ready. So I'm going to activate this. And now I'll go back to my object manager from setup. So I'm going to the setup. So object manager. So I want to create the button on account object. So I'm going to the account, and here there's an option called buttons and links. So from here I'll select the new action. So here our action type has to be flow, and we have different flows here, and I'm going to select multi-screen for contact, and I'll label it as a new contact, say multi-screen. This is just for demo purpose, and we should not give any prefixes here. So I have the button name here, so I'm just going to save this. So once we create the action, so I'm going back to the object manager, and we'll update the page layouts. So this is the page layout I'm using. So in the page layout, I'm going to pick up the mobile and lightning actions. So there is a section called Salesforce Mobile and Lightning Experience Actions. So in this section, we have to add our new button. So this is our new button. So I'm just going to add it as a first row button. So I added the button, and I'm going to save the page layout. So now we're all set with the page layout setup, and the flow is ready. And I'm going back to my account record. So as we can see, we have a new button called new contact multi-screen, and I'm going to click on this one. So this is our new screen, and we can see two columns as per the requirement, and we can see the phone number is required and birth date required. This is also in the requirement that we have, and I'm just going to give the contact details. So I have given my first name, last name, and as you can see, the account name auto populated, and I'll give the title as a VP of International Sales, and I'll go with the phone number. We'll try with the validations also, and so as you can see here, and if I don't enter any value, and it will ask me to enter the value, so I'll enter the input here. I'll give the email as userdemo@safetyservice.com, and I'll try to give the birth date as future. So let's see what will happen. Save. So as you can see here, the birth date should not be in future. So I'm just going to change this one. I'll select some 2004 April 1st, and I'll re-enter the remaining details. And we'll click on save. So this is our the Aura component that I added for seeing the button label as save. And let me click on save. Okay, so once I click on save, the record got created. So this is the new contact that got created. and I'm going to the details section to see all the values are there or not. So as you can see, the name came as Jane Scholar, and we have the title and we have the birth date, and the phone fields also that we mapped with the email information. So this is the easiest way that we can customize our or any flow buttons where we are going for the screens. So with this, I'm just ending the demo. And if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter, or you can also check my blog where I was posting the similar content. And thank you everyone for watching this video.